I clean for 20 minutes by using a strategy of lying to myself that I'm only going to clean for 5 minutes. I call that chunking, but it's just a strategy. Since I've practiced it a lot, it's more habitual now. It's a habit now to think, oh, I have to do something I don't want to do. I'm going to grab the timer. So we have the clean slating, and then we have the systems, mindsets, and then we have the habits and routines. Once we start building these things, we eventually get to a point of what I call maintenance. So that's the sharpening of the sword. That's when you've got really pretty good systems, pretty good mindsets, pretty good habits and routines. And now's where you want to be is when you have that foundation, you're just in a different place in life. Life is more sane. You've gotten down to the essentials. You're spending more of your time how you want to, and you have more freedom and more fun and more joy, more focused executive function for the things that really matter to you.
That's it in a nutshell. And I love how what you're talking about is developing a practice. Most of what I do that really shifts the dial on life is just building a muscle, building a practice, is just doing it imperfectly to start off with, but just doing it and doing it regularly. Like with my radical self-care practice, it is a daily ritual that I do. And it looks different every day. Do you find that people get overwhelmed at the thought of reducing their overwhelm?
So the things that part of executive function is emotional regulation, and overwhelm is emotional dysregulation. When we are dysregulated and overwhelmed, we don't have strong executive function. Our mind is more in the fight, flight, or freeze zone. We're not really in the execution prefrontal cortex zone. When we're stressed, we don't perform as well. When we're overwhelmed, we don't perform as well. What I do at that point is basic regulatory practices like taking a walk, breath work, meditation, writing it out. There's a million things that can, in the moment, help to downregulate us. And then there's the more practical, and that's what I call chunking. So when we're overwhelmed, we need to figure out what we need to do and chunk it down. So the one example of the chunking was the 5 minutes. So I'm overwhelmed. I don't want to do much, but I want to get it done. So I'm going to chunk it down to 5 minutes because I can contemplate cleaning this room for 5 minutes. And reduction in overwhelm because of a frame, since I shrunk it small enough that I'm not overwhelmed by it anymore, I could finally start. So, yeah, that's a practice. It's just a way to, so the point is when we're overwhelmed, the solution in Seth's mind is chunking. What are we trying to do, and how can we chunk it down to smaller and smaller pieces so that we have the quote motivation? And I'm not a fan of the word motivation, but we have the motivation or the ability to say, oh, I can take that small of a task. Let's take a baby step and then another. There's no magic sauce to all this stuff. It's really just micro actions. The way we're successful in life is just like little step. And we live in a world that wants everything right away. And the reality is people who are successful persist patiently at small steps.
I like that. And it's good for our mental health too. I often think I'm not where I want to be. And that can sometimes stop you in your tracks altogether. Whereas if you just think, okay, what's one little thing I can do today that's going to move me closer to where I want to be in life or who I want to be in life? I think that's incredibly helpful. So what difference can it make if you're practicing this regularly over time? What are some of the outcomes that you've experienced through practicing regularly on your executive function?
I think a reduction in stress and overwhelm. I think a growth in the freedom and fun. I think a more clarity around what's important and where I want to be putting my time and energy. I think less frustration with myself around wasting time or energy on things that aren't important to me. I don't get bored. I think more of an appreciation for the present moment, for the smell of the air outside, the sky, the feel of the wind, nature, and appreciation for people, relationships, connection, and presence within my own body, what's going on inside of me, my intuition, and how I feel about things. The overarching theme would be more clarity in general about the things that are really important. With the clean slating and getting down to some essentials, you automatically ask tough questions like what is important to me?